became around, this could cause huge changes. Storms from the sun are getting stronger than ever, and those on this planet are becoming greater involved that the last hurricane may want to destroy our satellites. Area marketers like Elon Musk are getting prepared for the worst, and NASA warns approximately new sun-associated risks almost every day. Within the previous couple of months, there had been extra effective sun storms than ever earlier then. We are in 2024, that is on its way to the solar maximum. Scientists don't suppose the sun could be at its maximum active till 2025. A few satellites are already very near their limits, so 2025 is probably an odd year. Elon Musk shared photographs of the pressure curves of his Starlink satellites in the summer season of 2024, which made people unhappy. The brand new satellite TV for PC community had simply barely been able to handle the sun's rays. What will appear next? Scientists say that the very peak of this sun cycle will show up in 2025. One of the predictions is a horrible typhoon that might cause us all to be absolutely disorganized. That is the worst time for the solar ever since it hit its height. It seems like almost every week, terrible weather happens due to the fact the sun is so energetic. NASA has tested that the solar's magnetic discipline has grew to become around. The solar commonly is going via these modifications, but now they show up each 11 years as an alternative of every 22.5 years. Whilst these poles jump, they reason violent shaking inside the solar's decrease layer. The floor of the solar is transferring in no time all through this cycle, that is known as Sun Cycle 25, and a surprisingly huge region of sunspots confirmed up on May additionally 1st, 2024. It was named Energetic Location 3664. In only some days, this sunspot got 17 times larger than Earth. The spot changed into made due to changes in the institution. We will see that the spots are darker than the rest of the solar due to the fact they are cooler. Sturdy currents make a type of hollow in the backside, and layers fall apart, making a small depression. This is cooler than the rest of the region. Strong solar flares and coronal mass ejections, CMEs, appear on the identical time as those occasions. Quite a few charged debris are thrown off the sun's floor at some point of flares and ejections, and strong currents carry them towards us. The particles gather on the poles when they hit the Earth's magnetic area. The Earth's environment has an amazing defense gadget that works like a collection bag for debris stuck in its layers. They are shaken back and forth through our planet until they lose their rate. This display is what we name auroras. Most of the time, the beautiful lighting fixtures most effective display up within the polar areas. When you consider that this year, the whole lot has changed. We saw auroras in places they do not normally show up. The auroras were so shiny that human beings in the Mediterranean, Australia, and Hawaii may want to see them in the course of one of the finest geomagnetic storms inside the last 500 years. NASA is fearful of the solar's biggest flare in 7 years. Issues had been raised at NASA approximately the protection of the ISS and lots of different satellites in space. Space generation can be critically damaged through sunstorms. Astronauts won't have sufficient resources if essential systems at the ISS smash down throughout the climate. Space shuttles and deliver shuttles additionally have trouble. We might not be able to get up-to-date facts from space if vital satellites pass down. Our conversation systems could also smash down. There can be quite a few harm. At this point, no one is aware of how secure NASA's tech centers certainly are. It's something that humans at NASA, SpaceX, and other businesses and international locations which have placed crucial objects in area worry approximately each day. The shock came in October 2024 while the solar placed out an X9.5 flare. We need to count on storms to be a good deal worse. Then, there is probably G4 stage geomagnetic occasions all the time. Not less than, storms this strong could make it hard to speak on the radio and may motive the northern lighting to show up in bizarre locations. In the real world, the sun goes through a cycle every 11 years, starting with little motion and then increasing. The variety of sunspots grows, the sun's radiation gets stronger, and the magnetic fields cause adjustments. Since the late 1700s, humans have known about the sun's patterns. The Carrington event was a large solar storm that sparked a lot of research into how the sun works and how it impacts modern life on Earth. In 1859, a very strong solar storm shut down the telegraph network, which was still very new at the time. It also caused chaos and fear around the world for days. The sky became like fire. Tech devices sent out sparks and people were scared. The chaos lasted for several days or weeks. Humans have known since then that the sun can be dangerous for modern society. Most likely, the currents do not affect animals and plants, but they could damage power structures. We depend on electricity for everything today. We would be in big trouble if the power grid and satellite-based communication networks around the world went down. The effect on the planet could grow stronger. NASA recently brought up the interesting question of how more activity from the sun might affect temperatures around the world. The weather is already out of control, and everyone is wondering if the sun's increased activity could make things worse. In theory, the extra radiation could destroy electrical systems and satellite communications. However, so far, there have been no changes seen in the temperature. Parts of space that come to us from the sun don't have a large enough charge to warm the atmosphere. Most likely, solar storms wouldn't have much of an effect on temperatures or the weather. What's most affected are satellites, technical sites in orbit around Earth, and electrical systems that are very sensitive. Experts still aren't sure whether solar storms this big could cause problems for plants, animals, or even humans, or whether they could accelerate the greenhouse effect. NASA posed this critical question to the world's best specialists. However, it's still not clear how we can keep ourselves safe. There is only one solution. No way. The flares and ejections from the sun are out of our control. We can only predict what might happen with climate change and keep our power resources safe. Since 1859, things have changed in our world. The only things that generated power back then were a national telegraph network and the first generators. Nobody knew what an energy grid was back then, nor did they have light bulbs, refrigerators, or stores and ATMs that run on electricity. People think that the famous Carrington event was one of the biggest solar storms ever seen. It took a long time for word of the storm to reach every part of the world due to the damaged communication system, playing in some places in the US that were very far away. No one knew what had happened. Most of the damage was done to North America when sparks from the telegraph started fires. People thought it was the end of the world because the sky was full of strange colors and phenomena. Before the state of emergency, only the British scientist Richard Carrington had seen a dark spot on the sun. When Carrington put the pieces together, he told people worldwide about his discovery. We'd be stuck without power or communication methods if a storm the size of the Carrington event occurred today. Things would get very chaotic for days at a time, and no one knows when the sun will make another storm like that. It's frightening to think that a medium-sized burst from the sun could ruin our civilization. It is easy for the sun to send out debris, just like it did in 1859. Researchers think there were similar storms in Earth's past. However, no one recorded them or paid much attention to them because there were no electric devices around. Researchers believe some of the brilliant stories of fire angels or spiritual images of a sky on fire might relate to violent solar storms that occurred in the past. From 1859 until now, less than 200 years have passed. The sun could continue making these types of storms. Scientists are working hard to track and predict the sun's activity cycles. However, experts say not to make promises too quickly. We've only been closely watching the sun for a very short time. In the end, we've done a lot of math over a few years and centuries, but we still don't know what cycles our stars used to follow, or if flares like the Carrington storm follow any patterns. The incredible thing about Earth's magnetic field. Have you ever thought about how cool it is that Earth has a magnetic field? Most likely, not every day. We don't even think about how lucky we are to live on this planet and enjoy all the great things it has to offer. We only realize how vulnerable we are in this world when solar storms or other disasters are on the horizon. Earth's magnetic field is what makes it what it is. The molten iron core mixes with the cooler layers on the outside. The friction created as a result forms a magnetic field that covers the entire planet, with poles at the north and south. At those poles, the debris coming from the sun is stopped, which is something that usually happens. People can even enjoy the beautiful northern lights. But what if our magnetic field got too weak or stopped working altogether? There would be a huge problem for us. At the very least, we can say this: the particle streams would hit us harder, and the sun would likely destroy our atmosphere so badly in a few thousand years that human life would be impossible. Mars doesn't have a magnetic field, so it doesn't have an atmosphere. The problem is that the magnetic field relies on the temperature of the core. If the core cools too much, the field will vanish.